Okay, everybody, welcome back to the self healing journey. And I'm excited to be starting a new series really based on astrology with my friend and partner here, Lilith. So, welcome, Lily, to Lilith.
Meet Dr. Charlier. Yes, that's right. An actual doctor. Soul planet, Jupiter. Occupation. He is an IT expert turned doctor of ancient Chinese medicine. Astrologer, Reiki practitioner, pranic healer, and holistic wellness coach. Spiritual status. He is a healer of Gaia, spiritual teacher, and healer of healers. Claim to fame. Created his own astrology VR game. And most importantly, he understands what Lilith is saying.
To our conversation that will really keep a lot of these conversation around astrology.
I'm ready for it, bro. I'm ready for it.
And this is Lilith, a Pisces, and, let's just say the less conventional one. Soul planet, Saturn, the karmic teacher. Occupation, finance expert turned psychic astrologer, spiritual teacher, and energy healer. And she is also a student of ancient Chinese medicine. Spiritual status, considered an elder, has had a Kundalini awakening and received Shaktipat, her spiritual initiation. Claim to fame, converses with God, and has the craziest stories.
Yes. So, I mean, let's dive deep into it. So, we just had our partial lunar eclipse in Virgo Pisces on September 17th, on top of what's already currently going on with like a triple retrograde where we've got Uranus retrograding in Taurus, we've got Neptune retrograding in Pisces, and we've got, what's the third one? Pluto just retrograded back into Capricorn. So it's a very interesting, heavy retrogrades going on globally and collectively. And then we have this new moon, actually full moon happening where the moon is between Neptune and Saturn in Pisces. And in my home sign of the sun in Virgo, and for you, the moon is conjunct your own sun over here in Pisces. And so what's really interesting is we're both representing, I'm representing the Virgo sun, and Lily is representing the Pisces sun. So it kind of really is interesting to have this polarity talking about astrology.
And as the North Node is about to enter the Virgo Pisces polarity. No, but that's the point. That's the point. So yesterday, okay, so people will see now how long it takes me to edit because the video is going to come out and I'm now speaking about the lunar eclipse of the of September yesterday. Busted! But anyway, so the lunar eclipse yesterday was intense. I had one of my most profound conversations with God ever. But what I want to say is from that, what I can, because it's difficult to explain everything. But after that conversation, it was so interesting because only then did I, realize fully the extent of the Virgo and Pisces axis that this was all happening on. And it completely aligns with what God had told me directly. This is before I'd even really looked at the astrology. So that was mind-blowing for me to see like how, when I interpreted the astrology, how that had played out in my conversation with God almost directly, but without bringing like astrology per se into it, right? We were talking about the issues at hand rather than astrology, but I was able to link it and I was like, that's crazy. But so the point is, instead of discussing yesterday's little story, I thought it would be better to discuss, at least to start off with, the story that led up to yesterday. And in my mind, we could start off with last year, 22, when the sun was at 22 degrees Scorpio, when I had that giant anaconda dream.
It's story time with a Pisces.
Yeah.
Okay.
Goes back to this anaconda all the
So,
time.
yes, we go back to that because why? The one thing I wanted to say about, like yesterday when I spoke to God, our physical bodies can't hold all of his love, even nearly. So it's an intense experience. But when I'm talking to God, obviously I have to allow that love into my physical body in order for the communication to take place. And what the ultimate feeling, if I can describe the feeling of love of God that I have when I'm in that mode, it's gratefulness.
Gratefulness.
So one would think it would be joy or even love itself. But love, I think, is an all encompassing rather than a singular. Do you know what I'm saying? It's almost like the white of colors. The love is the white of emotion. So in terms of defining what feeling is it exactly that you feel, I would say the feeling that is most prominent, that you come out of there crying and shaking, is extreme gratefulness. And so you will see like the joy and all of that almost automatically follows. Why I wanted to start with that though, because it's easy to say this stuff, but it's a whole other thing for us to put that into practice, to find that feeling. And I call it like it's finding a pathway to it. And that, my friend, is where the anaconda dream comes in, because that dream showed me the pathway to a specific feeling that I had to locate, that I had to find and authentically and get there. You know what I'm saying? So I discovered
Yeah.
that finding these uh, places of like gratefulness and emotion, it's really a pathway. You have to find it there. Not everybody knows how to get there. Everybody can say, oh yes, I want to feel joy, and in the dark, like in the depths of darkness, but it's a pathway to joy. You can't just switch on your feelings. You got to find your way there. This is the point, because it's got to be authentic. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
When you get there, you've got to believe that it is so. Otherwise, it's all made of smoke and mirrors. It'll come crashing down.
Yeah, and this is possibly what we talk about when we talk about the axis of Pisces and Virgo, right? It's this um, coming up and dreaming up of these ideas of what would work for us, right, to experience. But then in that like physical experience, you actually have to feel and experience everything that comes around what you're trying to think about, right? And this is kind of where a lot of times this is the academic world, right? When we're academically, we're thinking about, hey, it'd be a great way if we did this because this is what would happen with people's feelings, right? Like therapy. You know, if you think about this, you think about a trauma, you're going to go through the emotional response, right? And it's in that emotional response that we actually experience life, that we experience not wanting to do things or wanting to do things, right? Versus easy to go, hey, I'm going to go deal with anaconda. Sure, that sounds interesting. But the fact that you actually saw, felt, and in your body, you were emotionally triggered to feel like this anaconda could easily kill you in the dream space, right? But at least you were experiencing it as if it was real in your dream. And so we talk about our dreams and our reality kind of being two coins of the same side, right? But it's in this feeling that we actually can experience something rather than just thinking about the experience.
Yeah, but I don't know. All I know is I have Sun in Pisces. Pisces is my 12th house. Neptune is in the final degrees of Pisces in the 12th house. This shit's going down in the dream realm. And the dream realm for me has been more real than the physical realm, is the point.
Yes,
This
yes.
is this is the reality of my situation. But
But
so
I
yeah,
think
so
this
we
is
haven't
like
even explained. Huh?
I was just saying, this is kind of like the different polarities, right? Like my sun sign being in a Virgo versus your sun sign being in Pisces, and how dreams are so important in your own reality, in your own experiences of being alive.
My dreams have changed my life. I'll never be the same again after some of my so-called dreams. I mean, I put it in inverted commas because for me, yes, there are dreams, but my definition of dream may not be the same as yours.
But when we're talking about dreams, we're talking about the sleep dream, not you daydreaming about something. But we were talking actually about
No,
when
I
you're in your
know, but
sleep.
my out of body experience, for instance, my physical body was lying there sleeping, right? I saw it lying there sleeping. So then some might say, well, then that's a dream. So it didn't really happen.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
Right.
the non-believers will find the way to to dim the light of the magic.
Yeah, yeah. I agree. And I think there are a lot of people who actually aren't able to remember their dreams or, go into that dream space, the REM dream space too. So that's a deeper conversation we could have too, because
I
many
know. Neptune
people
in
aren't able
Pisces,
to.
a lot of people have been having dreams.
Yes.
They
Well,
just
definitely
don't
I
realize the
do.
significance of those dreams with
Yeah.
Neptune in Pisces.
I've definitely had a lot more vivid dreams in the last couple of months for sure, since all that's going
I've
on.
got some
The
past
Neptune
life
and Pisces.
bitches trying to sneak back into my life, and I'm like, yo, I don't want to go there, bro. I don't want to go there. But no. So about this, so the anaconda dream. So let's still take people through this anaconda dream, bro. So so the sun was at 22 degrees Scorpio last year, and I was expecting to have a dream that night actually, because I could see it in astrology actually. And that night, well, it wasn't just that night. So that night was I had a whole series of anaconda dreams during Scorpio. It was all the build up to the final one. So I'm not going to go through those first dreams, but just know this final one was where there was only one anaconda, and his head was like as big as a dinosaur's head, and he's like got his mouth open, and he's like suckling, like nibbling on my shoulders, like he's just tasting what he's about to eat for dinner or whatever. And I had to authentically find the place immediately, if not sooner, and know for a fact that God was protecting me. That, know that for certain that God was protecting me, and that therefore that the snake will not eat me, and that I'm fine. And so in the dream world, so yeah, in the physical world, there's a veil, right, that you can like hide behind, like smoke and mirrors, so this veil. But in the dream state, there's no veil. So they can now, with Neptune in Pisces, this is the best time to test, because it's either there or it's not. You're either authentic or it's not. There's nothing to hide behind. Do you know what I'm saying? So from that respect, it had to be authentic, and I found the place. And the point is, once I was back into the physical world, I had already found that place. Even if it was dream life, it showed me the path. So now in the physical space, I find, because I know the path, I can find that place where I know that God is taking care of me, and that everything's going to be fine. No snake is going to eat me. It's easier to find now once you've seen the pathway. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So this I found very interesting, because I started using that pathway, almost like as a manifestation tool. But rather as a manifestation tool, it was really just to test. You're just testing. You're discovering powers, and you've just got to test, like, what is the extent here of what's happening. So I used it, but in the form of manifestations, because that is more instant, that you can see. And it worked extremely well. But it was, the hardest part about that was finding the pathway to that feeling. Because that feeling is essentially what? Classic, bro. That feeling is essentially what? It's essentially a feeling of gratefulness for having already, like, it's already received. You've already asked for it, so in other words, it's already received. And that gratefulness and knowing that it's received and knowing that you knew it was going to be received. I mean, it's the deeper you can go, the more powerful that manifestation is. You know, almost like it's like a reversal in time, going forward and back. If you, if you
Yeah.
follow what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean you're kind of like moving to that like time paradox, right? Where there is no time even in dream.
Exactly. So you put yourself in the future and then you speak about the past, but you're speaking about your present. But you see, you've
Right.
got to go into the future and speak about your present or your future, even some point in the future, as your past. So it's a little bit of a twist.
Yeah, and we do this a lot actually in when we talk about the laws of attraction, and we are trying to attract the reality that we believe is already here for us, right? So we speak as if it's already happened to us, and we are imagining things that we are already in the future and it already has happened. And so we speak in the present moment as if what we are attracting to us now has already happened. So even in the laws of attraction, being conscious of that, but for you, in being in the sleep state, it was already happening that way, right? That it's already happened.
Well, yeah, I mean I've seen the 12th dimension. So I've seen like the all that is. It's really
And,
incomprehensible. It's really incomprehensible. I can't even like the closest I can get people's minds wrapped around it is that eight. I mean, for me, it's ancient already. I want to see new stuff like the stuff with the photon, the light photon that looked like the yin yang symbol. But anyway, this one is the structure of the atom and the structure of the solar system. I said if you could imagine that and understand that all of existence is just a fractal of everything else, like it just goes on forever both ways. Both ways. Now they've discovered, I heard Neil deGrasse Tyson say the other day that the properties around the edge of the universe that we can see is similar to the properties they find on the outer edge of a black hole. So he's saying we are evidence of what is inside a black hole. I mean, that's some crazy stuff right there. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, yeah. The black hole is really interesting just because, like, we still don't understand and perceive what we can
Well,
perceive
because it's
around.
Neil deGrasse Tyson. He's all about the science, you know?
Yeah, current science, obviously, current science, not the science
Current
that we as
science.
ancient souls and
He's
spirits have.
open minded to future science, though, but he also has to draw a boundary of what's already been proved and what has not yet, right?
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
theory, there's what's been proved, and then there's just the realm of possibilities.
I mean that's a deeper conversation we should talk about because I do think that science, in its understanding of reality, takes away dreams because it cannot use the scientific method to explain dreams, right? And that's why we have in science such hard boundaries around the paranormal.
Exactly, Charlie. Exactly.
Right. So if anything, like that's why like actually I enjoy people like Dolores Cannon or those who actually are what I call psychonauts, those who go into the mind to understand the reality of the mind compared to the existence of a physical reality. Because I believe that as we talk about this, that what is inside of us is being reflected in our outside reality. And so by that token, actually the physical reality is a reflection of what's already being internally created. And so, because of that, if you are using the physical reality as proof of existence, you're only proving the existence of the shadow of our reality, right? It's the same idea. That when you think about something and then you do it, by the time you do it, it's already past. But the thought that
Yeah.
came into your mind before you did the action is in that moment the creation of that act.
Yeah, we're, so to speak, in the last dimension. By the time it reaches the physical, it's on the tail end of things as far as other dimensions are concerned. It's like
Exactly.
the
And
last
so
one.
when you have scientists who are really just proving that the tail end of this reality is the only reality we experience, then this is why science has a difficult time wrapping their mind around dream world, around the laws of attraction, right? Around the power of the consciousness. And that's why today they talk about quantum mechanics, quantum physics, string theory, as if it's a different dimension that we are still learning to access. But yet, like, this is the ancients, like, so coming from Eastern traditions, you know, we're both studying Eastern tradition, we both have indigenous roots that have taught us how dreams have been so important and prevalent in our ability to create our reality. Yet today science is only finding tools to show that reality is only a reflection of what it is internally that we're creating in our quantum realm of our mind, our consciousness, right? And that's why this is what we talk about, this huge awakening of consciousness, because we realize that we are creating our own reality based on the thoughts that first pop into our mind. So, like for you, like you said, dreams have changed your reality because the dreams are so important. But the reason why you can only have these dreams to experience these 12th dimension is we don't have a way to experience physically the 12th dimension because it is so vast and great, right? Because even in the fourth dimension and fifth dimension, we're talking about
Wait, start again,
paradox
start
of
again. I
time.
don't.
I think what's really interesting that we're in a time frame right now that's really exciting is that the idea of the quantum mechanics, quantum realm, quantum theory, or string theory really adds to a lot more contention towards the idea that whatever happens in our thought is part of reality itself, right? And that's why, like, for you to have such compelling dreams that affects your own waking life shows how you know science has to rethink or reframe its ability to understand reality that takes into account the consciousness that happens both in our dream but in our thoughts.
Yes, 100% right. Because the fact of the matter is, I didn't physically experience any of that stuff, but it changed my life to the extent that it may as well have been, because it had the same result. Do you know what I'm saying? Either way, if something like that happened in real life, I'd be like, what? So, yeah, that is mind blowing. But
Yeah,
also about the dreams, I mean, I have it in my family where people have dreams about something that happens in the future. This can't be denied. Like, there are people out there that dream about the future all the time. I've had it, like, where I dream about something and the next day something like that happens. It may not be even something significant, but what is significant about it is the fact that you are dreaming about something that has not yet happened yet. So there is a connection of energies there that is not being acknowledged.
yeah. Have
You
you
know,
have you seen the movie Edge of Tomorrow with Tom Cruise and Emily Blunt?
I don't know. Maybe I'm not very good at movies
Yeah, so it's the movie
unless
where
it's
they're
Weekend
fighting.
Journeys.
It's they're fighting an invading force, an alien force, and it has the ability to rewind time, supposedly, right? And so in the movie, Tom Cruise ends up killing one of these beasts. The blood comes on him, and he's now able to basically Groundhog Day his life. And so he replays his reality, and then he dies, and he'll wake back up the day that he woke up that same day, right? So it's almost like 24 hours is being repeated for him, and he's
Yeah.
experiencing the day constantly. And for some reason, he repeats it and repeats it. He's able to tell people, "I've I've done this before. I've seen this.
And
This is
that's
what
like
you're gonna say."
Groundhog Day.
Exactly. Right. And so
Yeah.
we talk about this as if like this is a deja vu experience, right? We experience this, people call it deja vu. People say, oh, I've experienced this before. And that is really interesting because, again, I think even our consciousness is being seeded by the movies we talk about, right? And this is why actually Neptune is actually rules movies, right? Because Neptune in Hollywood is seeding the consciousness with these stories, but these stories are a reflection of what we have not yet understood, right? And that's why I think like Neptune or movies have been pushing the boundaries of our reality. Like sci-fi is today's present day, but like in the 1950s or 60s when we were talking about sci-fi, it was our future, which is today what we experience, right? And so sci-fi of the past seeded the consciousness for us to experience what we experience today, as if maybe the people in the past who were making sci-fi movies were already jumping to the future in their moment, creating
Yeah.
sci-fi movies that today we
Well,
experience as
there's
present.
books that were written like that. That book about Trump. There's a book that was written like ages ago about some guy called Trump, and he's got a hotel on Fifth Avenue, New York City, or something crazy like that. And there's a few of those stories that have come out. I mean, these oaks have like, written
Elon
books like.
Musk, actually, Elon Musk is a story, an entire story written that there's a character named Elon that goes to Mars and recolonizes Mars. His name is Elon.
I haven't heard
So
about that book yet.
yeah. It's so what's really interesting is there's that, but then we can also talk about when we do talk about space travel, we talk about gravity, and gravity is very much connected to gravity is the concept of space and time. So as you move in space, you supposedly move in time, right? And when you move in time, you also create these gravitational pulls. This is why our planet experiences a 24-hour day cycle, but you could easily leave the planet and travel for like 100 years and come back, and our planet will have moved 1,000,000 years into the future, and for you you've only grown maybe 100 years into age. And so that also shows how this time dilation depending on where you live in the solar system. So it's a similar, I think, concept when we have dreams, right? It's almost like the gravitational pull of our thoughts is very different, but this means that time travel is a possibility, and that maybe these books are written because there's these time
Time
traveling
travel is a
consciousness.
possibility, but I don't believe inside our dimension. You have to exit our dimension to travel in time. You cannot travel in
Right,
time
correct,
within 3D.
correct. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, and that's actually so actually in a lot of psychedelic experiences, people experience the fractal world. Have you heard of that? Where you see these beautiful
No, but that's
fractal
what I
visuals.
said now. Now everything is a fractal.
Yes. So the fractal world, I believe, is the world of no time dimensions. And so if you are moving in the fractal world, you are moving in this infinite, godlike experience that everything exists. But when you pin down to one part of the fractal, like a flower petal, then that experience is one timeline of the multi-dimensional timeline that you yourself can experience at that moment. And so time travelers
Yeah,
must
I mean
travel to
that's
this
what I'm saying.
fractal.
It's really incomprehensible. We can't really comprehend it because
I do
yes, it's
think
in every direction. It's in every
yes,
direction.
yeah, I do think that we are trying to comprehend it through
Even
movies and through
directions that we
experiences.
can. The point is, it's even going in directions that we cannot conceive of. This is why I'm saying it's incomprehensible.
Yes, in our current reflection of art, right? I think art is really powerful because art is like the right brain version of understanding really spirituality and all, right? And that's why art is able to create paradox, is able to create things that we are right, our left brain, who is trying to create logic and practicality, cannot comprehend, because the idea of paradoxes exist in art, right? And that's what's really powerful in actually us being creative. And that's why you see the water signs are the creative signs, you see the air signs are creative signs, because they are going beyond the time of a physical reality. That's why art can go beyond the imagination, because it's not constrained to logic, right? It's not constrained to the timelines that we experience in physical reality. My cat is trying to go to a different dimension over here, into the green screen dimension. Hey Naruto, what you doing? Come
That is classic, bro. Classic.
here.
No, but so this is Neptune in Pisces is all about the dreams. People have been having dreams now, significant dreams where ancestors and past life versions of themselves and all kinds of past life energies are trying to get them important messages which may or may not be used right now. It needs to be documented right now, and sometime in the future it will be needed, is all I
Yeah,
can explain.
yeah.
So I've tried to tell all my friends that throughout all these years. And now Neptune is only going to be in Pisces. I mean, it's got one more time at Neptune at 29. Can you believe my cousin's bachelorette wasn't at 29 degrees Neptune? It was at 28. But maybe just as well.
So what did you experience that made it a 29-degree Neptune compared to like any
For
other?
me, as a Pisces Sun 12th house, I thought that was the ultimate party. I was going with my friends to the clubs, and I'll be like, watch this. And they get to the clubs and it is pumping. I'm like, welcome to Neptune at 29 degrees Neptune, bitches. Like, it was clubs that would be like usually dead. Like, the club is pumping, or like little places. And then we'd have the party of a lifetime. Like, bro, like I was dancing like I hadn't danced in my since my early 20s, late teens. I'm talking about even mid-teens, bro. Going crazy. Neptune at 29. But remember the downfall. The downfall of Neptune at 29, if you're not aware of what's happening, is that party is going to be so good that you're going to want to do it again and again and again and again, and it lures you in, and before you know it, you're addicted, bro, and you're fucked. I mean, you know.
Yeah.
So
And
uh
this is what we talk a lot about, the addiction in Neptune, right? In the 12th house.
yeah, exactly. So you gotta make sure that during all these good times that you're not going to get addicted to anything, or any kind of those energies. Also, for instance, with Neptune at 29, get drunk, but I wouldn't be driving and drinking. Neptune at 29 will take you straight to prison, because Pisces 12th house is prison, bro. So no. So there's these
Rehab.
pitfalls that you've got to be aware of to enjoy the party and get through it in a safe manner. You've got to know the energies and how to play them. But so because I did know that, I find Neptune at 29 is really, when you do it safely, it is the ultimate party. I even saw astrologers were posting, they were meeting up, and they were posting on Facebook, and they were having crazy parties with Neptune at 29. Even the astrologers. And the point is, you don't hear a lot of astrologers talk about Neptune at 29 being the ultimate party. You know what I'm
Right?
saying?
Yeah, yeah. And this is a very rare occurrence. How often does this happen in the years that Neptune
Well,
travels
like
around?
essentially like once every 160 years. No, our souls have been waiting 160 years for these parties with Neptune at
Wow.
29. Because Neptune is still going to come to 29 one more time before it leaves for the next 160 years, because it's now retrograding, right? It's just gone back to
Oh,
28.
that's right. Yes, yes.
So
So
it's
we're
going to
gonna
come back. It's going to come back to 29 Neptune 29 Pisces one more time. And then I'm going to give it another round.
so in 2025, right? Because Neptune does go direct
Yeah.
come
Yeah,
December
because
this year.
it's retrogrades about 6 months of the year.
Yeah. So in 2025, we're going to experience again this like, and this is where maybe all of us should be preparing for this big party that's going to happen in 2025. However,
Well, I mean,
so
you got to
the,
make the party happen. You got to make the
that's true.
energy is
Yes, yes,
available for you, but
yes. So you're
you gotta go
creating your
out
party.
and, huh?
You're creating the party that you want
Yeah,
to
yeah. You got to
experience.
create the party. This is the
Yeah,
point.
yeah.
Part of the creativity. It ain't gonna just fall in your lap necessarily. I mean, it may or it
Right.
may not.
Yeah, but I do think that we are going to be partying for something that is very important in that retrograde, because right now I do think that the next 6 months is a lot happening globally, collectively, right? We don't need to get into specifics, but even here in America, right? I know you're in South Africa, so you're actually on the opposite side of the globe, but you also do experience and feel the effects of, at least for us, the election in America, because you did live here for a few years. You're right now currently in South Africa, but the world is hearing what's happening to the election. But it's not just the election. We see actually many industries that are going through their version of a retrograde, right? Whether it is COVID, with the
Well, I mean,
post
your
experience of
elections is
COVID,
really just that's Pluto Pluto's
Pluto
return
and
for the
Capricorn.
US.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. But then we're
but
also having stuff
Pluto
in
in
the crypto
Capricorn wrecked a lot of people. People are
still
done with
wrecking.
Pluto in Capricorn.
No,
They are
they're
done with
exactly.
it.
Yeah.
Everybody's like,
So
Pluto
we
in
came.
Aquarius!
So we're coming back into a retrograde for Pluto and Capricorn, right? And let's set the stage, right, for kind of what's
Well,
happening,
I
because
think
um
Neptune in Pisces has nicely set the stage for when Pluto hits Pisces. So now we've had this like let's say 10, 15 years or 12 years or however long Neptune was in Pisces in preparation for Pluto in Aquarius, which will be in preparation for Pluto in Pisces, bro.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Maybe
Though
it's
that's
only
a
going to be
long,
that big for me
yeah,
because
yeah.
I'm Pisces sun. But
But
for
that's a
you
long time
too,
from now, right? That's a long time from now, right? So if we were to
it's
just
not
look
it's
at,
not
like,
that long, bro. I mean, it's like what 20. Yeah, okay. But this is also why I think like somewhere between Pluto conjunct my sun and Pluto conjunct my ascendant, surely I have to die. Because at that point in time, I'm really quite old, you know? But one never
yeah,
knows. I have now just, there's a whole bunch of people that have just lived through Pluto conjunct their ascendant. I didn't know one of them that died. All of them survived it. Uh, they just went through big transformations, right? But it's very interesting because I would see one of my friends like with a Pluto conjunct ascendant, and I'd be like, phone them and be like, "Are you alive? Hello, hello." Do you know what I'm saying? Because Pluto conjunct ascendant, that's like death conjunct your physical body, bro.
yeah.
So it's definitely alignment that can be a death. So, but
So
not
so
one
we're
of them
talking about
died. So
anyone
this is
who's.
positive for everybody out there that's about
Yeah,
to
yeah.
live through a
So
Pluto
let's
conjunct.
set the stage for that too, because when you talk to people with Pluto ascendant, a lot of people would freak out because they don't know what that means. However, what we're talking about is anyone who had a Capricorn ascendant, right? Because that Pluto would be conjuncting your ascendant. Because when we say ascendant, it's actually your rising. So, like for me, I wouldn't necessarily experience that because I'm a Leo rising. But anyone who has a Capricorn rising, this is what we mean by a Pluto. Pluto is conjuncting your rising, because Pluto is in Capricorn right now. So if you do have a Capricorn rising, this is the experience that could potentially experience death. But what we're saying is that is not necessarily the case for the Pluto in Capricorn experience.
To be fair, after you've just lived through a Pluto like transit in your 12th house, because that's what everybody would live through prior to Pluto conjunct ascendant, uh, I think at that point in time you would welcome Pluto conjunct ascendant to almost signify the end of that fiasco. So this is what I'm
Yeah.
saying. I'm going to be living through, right after Pluto hits my sun, it's going to go into my 12th house, where it will be until it hits my ascendant. I mean, bro, you know what I'm saying? It's a
Yeah. So
it's a little bit.
let's rewind though, because Pluto hitting your ascendant is not for a while. We're looking at least what it's gonna hit Aquarius, then Pisces
I
before it
tell
even
you what,
hits.
it's going to hit my Venus over the next. I've actually already mapped it out. It's gonna hit my Venus like from next year onwards because Pluto retrogrades over my
Right.
Venus.
Venus in Capricorn.
Aquarius.
Oh, right. Okay. 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 Right.
And what
So
is interesting is that I've seen a lot of people who have planets conjunct my Venus, which means they're also going to be having a major Pluto transit. Now, maybe theirs is not in their 10th house, right? Mine will be very visible. So theirs might not be as visible, but it would be just as intense, I imagine, being a Pluto
Yeah.
transit of
So
some like major planet like Jupiter or something.
so these are, what we're really talking about. The idea is we're talking about transits, we're talking about conjunction, and this shows up a lot in synastry. So this is a much more advanced way of seeing astrology, and the reason why we can have this deeper conversation is because both have talked about our own astrology, and so we're very confident and stable in knowing our own astrology. And so when we talk to each other, we're able to understand the transits that's happening, so we can kind of see what people are going through in their transits. And so I wanted to set the stage because, again, I think a lot more people in this moment, and this is where I think where astrologers have this ability to go in the past, in the present, and in the future because of these transits. People who don't understand that tend to get stuck in, like, so what does that mean for me now, right? Because they're stuck in this now moment where they don't necessarily
Yeah.
understand the transits. And so I wanted to kind of set the stage for why I think a lot of us are experiencing a lot of um, I would say shadow work, and why the collective planet is also experiencing what they would be experiencing as shadow work, right? And so I wanted to talk about these three retrogrades that, again, are what I call the wise man. It's Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto. Those are considered to me the wise man because they're
That's
generational.
classic.
Right? They are the classic wise men, the three men, right? So you have Neptune, who is the mystic, who goes beyond the time and space. You got Pluto, who is the master of death and represents and understand the death, right? Hades. And then you have Uranus, which basically transform people to become more spiritually inclined with their mission. And so these three wise men are affecting these three houses, not houses, these three zodiac signs that show up in our world. And so I wanted to go back to like Pluto and Capricorn, right? Because we experienced a little bit of the Pluto and Capricorn in 2008, and now we're 2008 is Pluto first came into Capricorn, and now it's ending that cycle of Pluto in Capricorn and leaving to Pluto in Aquarius. And so what we saw in 2008, the beginning of that transit, we're now experiencing the culmination of that transit. So when we do say 29 degrees
Well, it's interesting
Capricorn,
that you say that. I just
because
realized you're 100% right. Because if you remember in 2008, when Pluto hit Capricorn, there was a housing crisis and all the prices of the houses dropped. Now, have you noticed all the prices of the houses are inflated? Nobody can afford a house. That's
exactly
so
right.
interesting.
Yeah, and this is, I think, what I want people to understand about transits, right? Because the greatest transits don't happen 0 to 30 degrees in a sign, right? It happens between one sign to the next sign. And so when Pluto first entered Capricorn, it was leaving Sagittarius, right? Which is all about freedom and all that. And so when we experienced 2008, when the house bubble kind of started having issues, that's a change. And so when Pluto entered Aquarius, this is now the beginning of like remote jobs. Like until Pluto hit Aquarius, we were doing the 9 to 5 jobs. We were doing the corporate lifestyle. We were doing the you have to drive into work and you're in work for that long. Today, I think half of the population of this planet is working remotely somehow, right? And that to me is a Pluto in Aquarius. However, now Pluto going back into Capricorn, I think shows again that like some jobs are saying, hey, this doesn't work for us. You can't be like for an acupuncturist, we cannot be learning remotely, right? And so I feel like this Pluto and Capricorn are like, all of you who has been working, studying, at home, you guys all need to show up in school now and do hands-on experiences to become an acupuncturist, right? Because I don't think anyone, even I would not believe that like you're a good acupuncturist because you learned it on Zoom and you're like needling yourself on Zoom, right? And that's very important to understand how this Pluto and the end retrograding into Capricorn. It's kind of like did we forget anything right now? Let's review kind of what's going on. In Capricorn represents really real estate. It represents power structure. It represents government to me. It represents that CEO idea. And so I think even the ideas that many CEOs have quit, they've all resigned recently for some reason. A lot of CEOs are now realizing they've been creating this corruption. And these CEOs who are running these major companies are also affecting our election, are affecting our government, because this is this whole idea of lobbying for rules, and our civil injustice is happening because these corporations are like, hey, we don't care about the average person. Let's just go pay it out and let them kind of forget about it. But Pluto's like, no, it is now the destruction of the corporation. And I think this housing crisis shows that there is a problem in the industry of corporations, money, governments, and real estate, right? And that's why we're seeing now this like inflation of in Pluto. Though I do think it's connected to Uranus and Taurus also. But did you want to add to that, Pluto and Capricorn?
Well, I mean, just for me, Pluto, by the way, Pluto in Aquarius is full on all about acupuncture. Acupuncture is going to be completely transformed.
And
Indeed.
astrology.
In fact, it might first die, then it would be transformed, and then it would be reborn. That's a possibility. I'm not saying it has to die first,
Yeah.
but given what I've heard were happening with the laws in the States, that is definitely a possibility. In other words, that law
Yeah.
can, there's a chance that law can be passed, in fact. But the point is, Pluto in Aquarius is not done, right? Because it's doing
Yes.
that as Pluto comes into Aquarius. So then it's still got like 15, 20 years to revamp acupuncture, and acupuncture will be right at the top by the time Pluto leaves Aquarius.
And I wanted to say something too, actually, to share some news about what's going on in the acupuncture field. There are now eight to nine schools that I've counted that are no longer teaching acupuncture. They have shut down because the Department of Education has passed a law that says that if you cannot prove that you can make the money that you are taking, basically, if you're not making the money when you graduate based on the loan, this is called, I forget what the name of the law is, but you basically cannot take a loan now to go to acupuncture school. And so now, because a lot of these students are not able to take loans out to go to acupuncture school, eight schools in the entire nation have shut down, and so now we have a lot less schools that are teaching acupuncture, which looks like a death of acupuncture, which I think is going to revamp the acupuncturing field, because we're going to see kind of this dip in like, hey, this doesn't work. The fact that we have to actually pay out for people to actually go to acupuncture school, which is a very prevalent medicine that we need in our culture, it's going to have to go through a revamp. And I think this Pluto in Aquarius, I think astrology is going through the same thing too. I think astrology is
Well, I
Aquarius,
think
and I think
astrology is more Scorpio energy. So, yes, I mean, it is opposing Uranus in Taurus.
okay. Okay. I mean,
So,
Pluto is ruling
but I
Scorpio,
more
so
see that as like, if you think about Uranus being like a lightning bolt energy, I more see that as people like awakening to astrology. Not quite conjunct yet, but they're looking at astrology, seeing it for the first time. You'll see maybe eventually when Uranus is in Scorpio. I'm actually born with Uranus in Scorpio, hence I'm a psychic astrologer.
me too.
But you'll see
Yeah.
when Uranus is in Scorpio again, then it will be the culmination of these people that are waking up to astrology now. Then it'll be everybody's actually realized the strength and the magic of astrology and
Yes.
how to use it.
So let us jump over now to Uranus, because I think Uranus in Taurus, to a lot of us who have Uranus in Scorpio natally, this is the opposition of our lifetime, right? And so a lot of us who are experiencing Uranus Taurus, like for me, it is in my
Well, bro, I mean,
midheaven.
you're talking to a generation that has lived through Pluto conjunct Uranus. So nobody gives a shit at this point in time. Do you know what I'm saying? This is all small fry compared to what we've lived through already, bro. Nobody gives a shit. This
Well, so what
opposition.
So when was Pluto and Uranus conjunct?
Well, first of all, that was when I witnessed my uncle get murdered on the farm.
What year? What year?
That was 2007, start of 2007.
Again, right before the. So 2008 was a pretty fucked up time. I mean, we experienced a lot from 2007,
This is what I'm
2008.
talking about. Everybody that's got Uranus in Scorpio will have lived through Pluto conjunct Uranus, surely. I mean, unless they were born, well,
No,
after
it's
me,
they would
because
have.
you.
Yeah, no, yeah, yeah. So there's a generation of us who experienced that, and again, like
Exactly. And I'm
a
saying
lot of
those
us,
zones.
right? And so that's what I'm saying is not a lot of us will remember the conjunction, but we remember the year, right? So if we're talking about 2007, let us remember what happened in 2007 that was so drastic in our lives that would made us remember a
Well,
conjunction like
remember,
that.
Uranus is at 4 degrees Sag for me. So if you've got Uranus after 4 degrees Sag, then yours will be later than 2007. That and
Natally.
that. Oh, my Uranus is not in Scorpio, but it was in my eighth house. That's the point.
Okay, okay.
It was in my eighth house, and Scorpio is on my eighth house cusp.
Yeah,
So
so the
it is in
conjunction
my eighth
happened in
house of
which
Scorpio,
sign?
but it's in Sag, huh?
The conjunction happened in which house?
In my eighth house,
In which zodiac sign? I'm sorry.
in Sag, in
Okay,
Sag.
okay, okay.
But
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Scorpio rules my eighth house.
Yes, yes. So for you specifically, that happened, right? And so you saw death because of the eighth house. But with Uranus conjunct Pluto in Sag, I think a lot of us experience things that have Sagittarius energy. So maybe it is the abundance happened, right? Or, I mean, really, in 2007 was like we were having a lot of abundance, right? Everything is, and that's why, like, usually when we get like a huge major attack, like 2008, we had the crash crisis for the market, right? That means that we were doing well until we are not. And so in 2007, when that conjunction happened in Sag, it was like this abundance was happening, and as soon as like Pluto hit Capricorn, wait, was Pluto conjunct Sag in 4 degrees, and how did Pluto get to Capricorn in the following year?
Following year? No ways, bro.
Yeah, so
Oh, sorry, 1997, I meant to say. 1997.
oh my goodness.
10
Okay.
years before.
Okay. So this is why it's really
No.
important to remember the year. It's funny because
Yeah.
you
Yeah. 1997. My bad. My
no, it's
bad.
okay. It's a very different time. So I wanted to share this just because
Rookie astrologer mistake. Rookie mistake.
I love our energies in that you're able to describe everything with the transits of zodiacs and astrology, which a lot of our audience may not be aware of. So I'm trying to translate that to make sense for what people are experiencing that's happened to their lives, but they didn't know how to label it an astrological phenomena. They were just labeling it, oh, 97 we experienced that. 97 was the dot-com boom. I was there for that. Like, actually, that conjunction brought me into technology. I was pre-med 1996, 1997.
No.
And as soon as I guess this conjunction happened in Sag, I went into tech. I went into the dot com, I went to HTML, I went to programming, and went to school for computer science, which is interesting that that happened during Sagittarius time. But that's
Yeah, well, it's my own
1997.
learning. But what I wanted to say is you were saying that you want to translate this and whatever. So that's the point, because I don't even speak in stories anymore. My friends need to they need to be well versed in astrology, because I'll just like go to Charlie and I'll be like, Charlie, Saturn just retrograded on my sun, and then I don't want to say, I have to say more. You must understand the significance of what I'm going through purely by the fact that Saturn has just retrograded on my sun. And if you don't, well, then I don't have time to explain right now because Saturn has just retrograded on my sun. Yeah.
And I think this is why I think we decided to do these podcasts, right? Because what's really interesting is you bring so much depth in understanding the transits. You've taught me so much about understanding and recognizing these transits. But for me, I had to actually relate it back to, because I've journaled all my life. And because of that, I'm always very aware of the timing, right? So when you say 97, 98, I knew exactly what was happening in my life. I knew what I was feeling, what I was going through. But I didn't know that it was connected to a transit, an astrological transit. And so what I love is, I love having conversation with astrologers, but
Blame it on
sometimes
Pluto. Blame it on
their
Pluto.
language is pure astrology, and so it's like speaking a foreign language to many of us, right? And
Yeah.
unless you are, um, a lot of people don't do this, but a lot of people don't track their journals to their astrology timing, and so they're not able to recognize that astrology um, created an experience for you, and then you are journaling your experience, not realizing that things happen in the global scale or in your personal scale that triggered you into moving into this part of your life. And that's why it's really important that we see astrology not as something that's happening to us, right? But that we chose our astrology when we were born, so that everything that would happen until then, we already knew before we were born. So going back to this idea that when we were spirit before we came into a life, we were already living all timelines of our lives. And so when we go back and go into physical form and we're born into this reality, when we do experience a deja vu, like I felt like I've experienced that, we did. We experienced it in the spirit realm before we created our astrology sign, so that we probably kind of had a teaser experience of what our life is and goes, this experience will be fun. I'm going to be born during this time to experience these transits. And so today now, when we talk about these transits, when we're talking about, oh my God, and this is important to the non-astrologers, because a lot of us, what we do as astrologer is actually give a weather report, an energetic weather report to the non-astrologers, right? And that usually helps people get informed on what's happening. I Most of the time, people don't care I'm an astrologer until shit happens in their life and they go, Charlie, what happened to my fucking astrology that I'm experiencing this, right? And that's usually when people actually care that I'm an astrologer. Until then, like, they really don't. And sometimes
Then it's
you are,
usually Pluto or Saturn involved.
and you're so good at being so on point on the different energies that I really appreciate that. But a lot of times, many of us do not, like, it's funny because, like, for me myself, I have a lot of astrologers in my feeds of Instagram, Facebook, and so they're always sharing stuff. And sometimes some astrologers are really good. They're like, "Oh my God, this is what's happening," blah 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 blah. However, what's been happening in the last 2, 3 years is there's been a lot more retrogrades that I've ever experienced, and so it feels like every month you're like, hey guys, this shit show's happening again. We're having another crazy retrograde. And it becomes very difficult for people to differentiate the energies that they should be looking at, right? A lot of times before this time, no one asked me any kind of retrogrades. The only Mercury retrograde was like the more interesting retrograde people talked about. Today, I don't really necessarily say I'm an astrologer, weather report guy, but I do share a lot of transits. I try to kind of differentiate the energy where it's like, if Pluto's coming in, expect death. Versus you have to be very careful that you're not like making people rile up when you're like, hey, Neptune's retrograded. And a lot of people are like, oh, is there death coming? No, no, no. That's a Pluto retrograde. A Neptune retrograde is pay attention to your dreams. Pay attention to what you want to create in your life. Pay attention to things that don't have to do with time, right? Because Neptune goes beyond time and space. And so
Well, for
it's
me,
really
Neptune
interesting
retrograde reveals the truth.
of
All
the truth of,
well, of anything. The truth, if something was concealed and it comes out, you will see it will come out during a Neptune retrograde. Truth is revealed during a Neptune retrograde. It is the time when the veil is lifted.
yeah. And that's because when it's going naturally, when Neptune is going direct, the veil is there. The veil is happening. And so we do have this veiled experience between what we experience physically and what we do experience in that dream, that we think they're kind of separate. So now
So,
you're saying
in
that
other words, given what I just said and what you were just saying, Neptune retrograde, you are less likely to be delusional. You're more likely to be delusional if Neptune is direct because of the veil.
exactly, yeah.
It
So
can
so
deceive
it's
you.
funny. There's a lot of
The rose
and
colored glasses come off when Neptune goes retrograde.
what I love about the social media experience is I get to get a hint of what people are seeding the consciousness with. And I like to see those patterns because they usually match. What's really funny is I'm now getting a lot of memes about people being delusional, or they call it delulu, right? They use the word delulu a lot, or don't be such a delulu, delusional. And so there's been this huge funny memes around spiritual people and how they're getting delusional and they have to recognize that they are being ironically so spiritual that they actually are ungrounded and they become delusional of what they're trying to create rather than being very in tune and tapped into the groundedness of reality, that these are still the ABCs you need to do, but you can't go, hey, I'm going to go from A to Z in a day, right? And that's that delusion that we have to kind of go, hey, the truth is you still need to put in the work. This is actually what's ironic about the 12th house is this is the spiritual house of prayers and devotion. So this is the idea where people go to like church and they pray, can this happen to me? And we hear these memes where like you ask God for strength. What did God give you? The experience to show you that you need to build strength. So there is this truth that if you want the experience of truth or strength, you need to experience moments when you're not feeling strong. And that's a lot of people bypass that, creating the delusion that they can become strong without any experiences to give them that strength. Versus when Neptune is retrograding, you're like, God, give me strength. God's like, I'll give you 30 days and 30 experiences every day to show you that you don't have strength so that you can create the strength you need, because this is the experience you've asked for by, through the 12th house. And that's why it's really interesting that now we're seeing a lot of people calling out, delusional thinking, so that we can become much more truthful about how we can come about creating our dreams, our the things that we realize we want to do.
Yeah.
So so I think that's Neptune. We haven't really talked about Uranus in retrograde. I think Uranus in retrograde is a really big one, because Uranus in retrograde in Taurus represents finance, land, farming, food, which we're all experiencing today, right? The finance situation. We now are talking about cryptocurrency. Some people are in it, some people are not. We're talking about apparently a whole new BRIC system that Russia, Britain, Brazil, China, and all these people are creating a whole new
I think we
monetary.
should leave Uranus until next time.
Next time? Okay.
Yeah, because the point is, if you think about it, we spent like 40 minutes generally discussing Neptune, and you're saying Uranus is a big one.
Okay.
We don't have time really to discuss Neptune now
Yeah.
because that's another
Fair
40
enough.
minutes at least. We need to give Neptune the respect and the time and the
Uranus,
honor.
yes. We'll definitely give Uranus the time and space he needs.
It's actually Uranus is the correct way to pronounce it.
Uranus.
I don't know where this Uranus comes from. I've been saying Uranus because I've just come back from the States. It seems like you guys are saying Uranus and I got sucked into that little vortex. But actually, now that I'm back in the real world, it's Uranus. The planet is called Uranus.
You hear that, Americans? You hear that? Your Americans do everything differently, and the whole world loves to tell us it's not the metric system,
No,
it's the yard
you
system.
guys,
It's
no, what's
somebody's
happening is
foot. We don't use
you
the
guys
metric
don't like
system.
the whole thing that it sounds like Uranus. But I can't
We
help it
love
if your
talking
minds are
about
in the gutter.
Uranus.
I can't help it if your minds are in the gutter, bro. It's Uranus. This is what it is.
Welcome to America, everybody.
But
Yeah, so
yeah,
to
bro.
keep the show, consistently about an hour for us to be, having this deeper discussion of astrology, within a nice hour long video podcast, we wanted to kind of close it out now to just sharing kind of our last thoughts about Pluto and Neptune that we talked about today.
Exactly. Well, I mean, I always, whenever something goes wrong in my life, I just blame it on Pluto. Pluto is the destroyer of everything.
Yes. And I want
Uh,
to say, and I want to also say that I've heard a lot of your own personal experience, and you've experienced a lot of really crazy deaths. That's why I know that Pluto has been a very strong transit in your chart. I didn't experience a lot of death that way. That's why like Pluto transits are not that impactful in my life. But man, hearing your stories, I definitely know Neptune is a very strong transit in your chart.
well, Neptune is conjunct the
I'm sorry,
galactic center in the
Pluto,
ninth house in
Pluto,
my chart.
Pluto. Yes, I meant Pluto. I'm
Uh,
sorry.
well, Pluto
Pluto
is
and
in my
Neptune.
seventh house.
Yeah, yeah. So Pluto is death, but Neptune is your ruling planet because I mean you do have. I know you have an Aries rising, but like Sun in Pisces means that Neptune is a very strong part of your experience as well.
No, for sure. And it's conjunct the galactic center in the ninth house. And the ninth house, the other ruler of the ninth house is the co-ruler of Pisces. So those two are friends. So it's going down there. You know what I'm saying? It's a
Yeah,
party
yeah,
happening over
yeah,
there. But the
yeah.
point is, yeah, Pluto, I would say my worst Pluto transit was Pluto in the eighth, on the eighth degree of the
I
eighth
mean
house.
that's a double whammy. You're putting Pluto in
Which,
its house
well,
ruler.
it's more than a double whammy because it's Pluto, eighth degree, eighth house, and it was Scorpio. That was when I lost my brother
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
for
So,
Pluto.
so if you guys didn't know, the eighth house represents Scorpio and Pluto. Pluto rules Scorpio, and Scorpio is the same vibration of Pluto. So you're kind of having like a four-way
Well, and
conversation.
Pluto is the eighth house, so it's the eighth degree of the eighth house,
Right, exactly. So
and that's
five,
where the
five.
planet is from the eighth house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so when you have a lot of these kind of conjunction of the same vibration, you're only going to experience very specific, like basically Pluto and death are like synonymous. And so to have like these eight
Yeah,
conjunctions
but
of the
okay, my
sphere.
death was physical. Let's not freak everybody out. It's not always a physical death. Like in my case, but I had, you see, you got to understand where Pluto is coming from in your chart. In my chart, it's coming from my seventh house. So there, you know you've got another person involved.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So again, it's very the small nuances depending on your natal chart, and that's why it's really hard to generalize astrology. As much as we try to, this is why like it's much easier to generalize when we are talking about the bigger planets, the generational planets like Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus. But as we're going, and that's why it's really hard for us to talk about like the moon because by the time we finish talking about this conversation, the moon
No,
has already
exactly.
moved
Unless
on.
you're talking about your progressed moon, it's pointless. But to finish off with Pluto, Pluto is actually a generational planet. And they say Gen X or whatever, okay, now they're calling us the Xennials. Yeah, because the fact of the matter is you can't take Gen X out of me. I was born with Gen X in the sense that I did not grow up with any technology, bro. Do you know what I'm saying? Uh, so yeah, and the point is that is the generation of Pluto in Libra. When Pluto entered Scorpio, that for me is millennial. So
Yes.
I define generations by where Pluto is. So I am, yes, I'm Pluto is in the final degrees of Libra for me. So you can see I'm at the end of that generation. But I'm not a millennial as much as I want to be. I don't mind being called a millennial if it means people think I'm younger. but the reality is, I'm a Pluto in Libra. So this is the situation. But so
Yes.
it's a generation. So now, as Pluto leaves Capricorn and enters Aquarius, we're essentially going into a new generation. There's a new generation of people being born that are going to change the future. Like, you now discussing a future that is going to be in the hands of people that aren't even born yet. So it's a new generation, it's a new way of thinking, and that is Aquarius energy. It's everything new and innovative, and you know, uh, it likes something, it likes to do things differently. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a new time upon all of us. And for those Aquarius out there, God be with you.
Yeah, I love
Because
for us to
Pluto is
actually
going to conjunct your sun.
I love for us to actually do talk a little bit more about Pluto and the generation. I've done a little bit more, my own research on that, just because it's such a very compelling way to describe astrology that people may not understand, but recognize very strongly about. We
Exactly.
talk
Well,
about
we should do
generation.
Pluto conjunct your sun and ascendant, because and transit through the 12th house, because I think I'm seeing a lot of people go through those transits specifically. This is people close to me. I'm actually also going to live through that transit still in my lifetime, but I think for me it will be a physical death, or I don't know. If we're living till 120, then maybe not. Maybe it's just when I get my facelift.
so so again, just kind of like wrapping up the show. I think today was like our first time trying this out together to try to see what kind of energy we would kind of be able to speak about, and then see what kind of astrology concepts were coming out. And I think we started off a little bit all over the place, and so I'd love for you guys to kind of comment, what is it that worked, didn't work for you in our conversation. We're really trying to bridge these polarities of like the Pisces and Virgo energy, as we are just passing this lunation eclipse between the two polarity of Pisces and Virgo. But it is trying to
And you in
really
your all black ensemble. Classic Virgo.
Yeah,
Classic Virgo in your all black ensemble. Actually,
black, and
black's a
you got
Pisces
like a
color
little
as well.
pale. Yeah,
But I'm
yeah,
I'm I'm
exactly.
I'm yin. I'm yang energy today. I'm not yin. I let you be the yin. I'm yang energy today. So I wore the yellow.
Yes, yes. So I think what we're trying to do with this podcast is really have a deeper conversation about astrology, the transits, your personal charts, the weather of
Life, God.
and God and spirit and divine. And so we're really talking about the mind, body, spirit. The spirituality is very connected to astrology and the different transits and different progression in our lives. And so as we're trying to develop this show for with you guys, we'd love to get more input, more feedback from you all to see what worked, what didn't work. I know astrology. For me, I enjoy these conversations because I have very strong basics for astrology, but most people I know have a hard time understanding astrologers because they do speak in their own language, right? Lilith Moon. And so it's important for us to, for me, I'd love to be able to get more feedback from you all and say, I don't understand these concepts, so could you break them down a little bit further? And together, we're going to try to create analogies or even experiences that we both experience that helps describe these energies. And I think today we've sometimes used the wrong word, whether we're using Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus. Like, we're still kind of like, as astrologer, it's still very difficult sometimes to remember which energy we're speaking of, and not necessarily getting lost in how similar they could be, but also very different in how we
Yeah, like
experience
8th
this
and
energy.
12th house energies can be quite similar as
Exactly.
example.
Exactly. So it is very important for us to kind of get your feedback, y'all. So thank you so much for watching our episode this week. We're hoping to do a weekly show to really, again, like, I want this to be like, I think what's happened today, and I wanted to get into the next one, but like the idea of Uranus in Taurus, and I'm sorry, the generation of Pluto in Libra, what that a lot of us represent. This is the Pluto and Libra. The two of us talking about things is very much this Pluto and Libra trying to rethink our
Well, talking
relationship with
about
each other
transformations.
and this transformation in relationships. So, what we experienced before, even in like TV's change a lot, where we're no longer watching TV that is programmed, but we are all watching ourselves, recording ourselves on YouTube, on all these different social media platforms, which we're the everyday person now sharing our ideas versus back in the days it was actors being told what to say on TV. And so now what's really beautiful about the age of Aquarius that we're moving into is we are just regular people who are sharing our experiences, and collectively, we're going to find the truth of who we are much better than watching actors tell us what we should believe that they don't believe. And that's the TV programming, y'all. So I'm really excited for us to be able to sharing our personal stories authentically, with these transits, we're not actors, we're just regular people living, paying bills, but a lot of our stories actually are ways to express astrology, so we can all actually be more in control of our lives rather than letting astrology happen to us and blaming astrology for everything that you have the power to co-create. So
Exactly.
Lily, would you like to share any last words for our audience?
No, I couldn't have said it better. That's exactly it. I mean, people always tell me, like, do not live my life around astrology. And I'm like, yo, if somebody told you it's raining and you want to go out without an umbrella, that's your prerogative. I'm just taking the umbrella. I'm not. Nobody said I'm scared of no rain. I'm just taking an umbrella. But it helps to know that it's going to rain, because otherwise I probably wouldn't take the umbrella. you know.
Exactly.
So yeah, it's all about how you use it.
Exactly. So thank you all. Thank you for tuning in. And next week, we'll see you all on another episode of Astrology Weather
Whatever the
Forecast.
hell this is.
Yeah. So thank you all.
Bye.
Bye.